So we shall now go on to our next group. I would want Dr. Vardhaman Kankaria to give his first talk, and then followed by Shreyesh, and then we take the discussions. So Dr. Vardhaman Kankaria, as we all know, has a premium practice after a dual fellowship from US and Europe, and a very leading refractive cataract surgeon, a young one from Pune. And he's going to talk on a very quintessential topic, pre-op evaluation in phakic IOLs. And I think that's an extremely critical topic. He would be followed up by Dr. Shreyesh Ramurthy, who's a consultant cataract, cornea, and refractive services at the Eye Foundation Group of Hospitals, a young, very versatile surgeon who's going to talk on something as important, that is sizing of phakic IOLs. So let's hear from Vardhaman first. On to you. Vardhaman, unmute yourself.
Yes. Right. Thank you so much, ma'am. I hope I am audible.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So first of all, thank you so much to Dr. Chitra ma'am and the team ARC for the kind invitation. Actually, both Dr. Naren and Dr. Anaga has made my job very easy because they have covered a lot of aspects of when to choose, how to choose, and when to avoid the phakic lenses in this regard. So now what I'm going to talk to you about is going to be how do we evaluate these patients. So back in 1997, which we will say as one of the earlier days of laser refractive surgery, the percentage of moderate to high myopes who were coming for evaluation refractive surgery were seen to be 10 times to 16 times more than the lower myopes, because till that time, let us say the safety of the laser vision correction was not truly established. Over the years, what we have seen is now the high myopes have probably come to now 10 to 15% to 20% of our refractive evaluations overall. And with the current armamentarium of the laser refractive surgery that we have with the corneal lasers, such as with the today's generation of the advanced surface ablation, SMILE, femtoLASIK, Contour vision laser procedures, the current generation of phakic lenses such as EVO ICLs and some of the very good quality Indian lenses, and also in very select patients, the refractive lens exchange. So actually our evaluation should cover the entire aspect and the armamentarium of the refractive surgical patients when they come to us. What we understand now is that a routine evaluation of refractive surgery has the aim to choose the eligible patients for the right technology, to also understand the prognosis and the future course of these patients, and to avoid possible complications. A routine evaluation of refractive surgery patient involves, of course, history taking, refraction, intraocular pressures, adnexal evaluation, slit lamp evaluation to look at the anterior chamber, peripheral retinal evaluation to avoid peripheral retinal issues in the future, dry eye workup, especially in corneal laser procedures, the pupillometry, corneal tomography, and axial length as a baseline to look at also the future course in case if we look at regression or progressive myopia. However, I'm going to limit myself to the spatial considerations which are for evaluation of the phakic lenses itself. We are going to talk about 9 different aspects, out of which the first 6 or 7 are for the eligibility of the phakic lenses. And the last couple of them are mainly for the sizing issue, what is going to be dealt by Dr. Shreyas in the next talk. Now, what we were discussing just now in the panel discussion is about the age factor. We still stick to 21 years, especially large population of our phakic lenses are high myopic. So anybody who has pathological myopia more than 6 diopters or more than 8 diopters, I think it is better that we wait till 21 years, because the studies have shown that the eye still is going in progressive axial length elongation till the age of 21 years. And in some patients, we have also seen that some people, even at the age of 23 or 24 years, still they tend to progress. So it is very crucial that we actually establish a stability of refractive error for at least 1 year. And the minimum age has to be 21 years. The age that you can extend to can be in the range of 45 to 50 years. Now, the main reason why we stick to 45 years is mainly after that, you know that there is a age-related lens rise, there is a age-related decrease in endothelial cell count, anterior chamber crowding, and increase in chance of cataract formation. So I think this is one of the reasons that we should typically stick to 45 or at max 50 years. However, the newer generations of the ICLs, including the presbyopic IPCL and the new ICL, which is going to come now, which is called as a Vivo ICL, are coming in presbyopic range because they are treating the presbyopic errors as well, which is going to be dealt by Dr. Titiyal sir in the future. So in these situations, you can stretch it up to 60 years of age. The second one, of course, is the refractive error, the range of the correction and how you deal with that. It is very important that you actually do cycloplegic refraction in each and every patient. For patients who have of extremely high emmetropia, like in the range of 18 or 20 year myopia, diopters of myopia, you can also choose to do what is called as a contact lens over refraction. That gives you much more accurate refractive correction. It is also important that you choose the right range of the refraction. If you talk about the STAR ICL, I think the current range allows you to treat myopia up to -19 to -20 diopters with a astigmatism up to 5.5 to 6 diopters. And on the lower side, I personally do not choose to do phakic lenses for patients who are less than 2 diopters of myopia, because in a large amount of those patients actually doing a nice, let us say, a surface ablation plus procedure can also give us a good long-term outcome. Coming to the slit lamp examination, now coming to the refractive error itself, as we know, this is a paper that our group had published back in 2007, in which for -9.50 diopters of spherical equivalent, one eye underwent LASIK, the other eye underwent a ICL procedure. Over 9 years of follow-up that this study reported, we have seen that in the eye of ICL, the vision was still 20/25 uncorrected. And in the eye which had undergone LASIK, there was a regression and the vision had dropped to 20/60. So this is one of the reasons that we choose the ICL procedures for anybody who has more than 8 or 9 diopters of myopia. It has a lot of advantages, including maintenance of your quality of vision, especially the night vision, less amount of halos and glare, better contrast sensitivity, and less chances of regression, apart from avoiding complications such as ectasia. Of course, when you look at the slit lamp, it is important that you look at the eyelid margin, and you have to be sure that there is no active blepharitis and meibomian gland dysfunction has to be treated beforehand. Because although the endophthalmitis also has been seen in minority of patients, in many of them, it was actually related to the commensals at the eyelid margin. The cornea has to be carefully evaluated, especially if you see a patient who has a very thick cornea, to rule out guttata. The idocorneal angles, anterior chamber depth evaluation, even on the slit lamp, and the clarity of the lens is of paramount importance. Here, I would like to just make a comment about the eye trace. As we eye trace as a device can also rule out the intralenticular issues such as aberrations, and these patients are best suited for refractive lens exchange. Pupillometry is very important, and you have to make sure that your pupillary diameter is not more than the optical zone. So anybody who has more than 6 millimeter or 6.5 millimeters of mesopic pupillary diameter is not a good candidate for phakic lenses. Now, of course, with the advent of the EVO plus Vision ICL, now you have a much larger optical zone. It is increased by about 0.3 millimeters and reduces your chance of halos and glare and spherical induction of aberrations in those patients. So coming to the peripheral retinal examination, it is of paramount importance. As you know, you should get it done always by a trained retina eye specialist. It is, if you have access to the ultra wide field retinal imaging, it is important for documentation as well as patient education. If you see any peripheral retinal lesions, if they are treatable, of course, you should go ahead and do a barrage laser photocoagulation. Wait for at least 2 to 3 weeks after that, and then only you should go ahead and do a refractive surgery. If there are some lesions but which are benign and do not require actually
So you have 1 minute remaining.
Yes. So then you should go ahead and plan refractive surgery altogether. So there are a lot of different, let us say, retinal complications which have been noted, but not directly related to the phakic lens implantation. When it comes to the recommendation, I think any symptomatic horseshoe tear, operculated hole, lattice degeneration with retinal hole or with atrophic hole has to be treated promptly. The only lesion that you can still observe is there are very small asymptomatic lattice degeneration without retinal holes, but that also is better to be treated actually rather than not. So this is a couple of things that I'm just going to narrate, but I think Dr. Shreyas is going to speak more about it. I'm just going to briefly tell you about use of tomography for regularity, the central corneal thickness, ruling out ectasia and looking at the stability of ectasia, and anterior chamber depth. As it has been mentioned, the anterior chamber depth has to be 3 millimeters for hyperopia and 2.8 millimeters for myopic ICL procedures. Keratoconus, if established, has to be stabilized with cross-linking or should be documented to be stable before you do the IPCL procedure or ICL procedure. A specular microscopy is very, very important. You have to make sure that your specular count is more than 2,200 to 2,500 in the patients who undergo the phakic lens implants. You should have a very good amount of hexagonality, more than 60%, and very less amount of coefficient of variation, which is less than 40%. Coming to the sizing, I think Dr. Shreyas will speak to you about it, but just to briefly tell you about it, it is very crucial that the anterior chamber depth that you measure is only from the endothelial side, and it has to be at least 2.8 millimeters. That is for eligibility. However, when you look at the total anterior chamber depth from the epithelium is required for your calculation of the ICL calculation per se. The white-to-white measurements are very, very crucial, and they can be dealt with by a variety of different instruments today. You can do either with a Vernil caliper, which is the manual digital caliper, which is what we prefer, which works as a surrogate anatomical landmark, or you can also do a direct sulcus to sulcus. But it is very crucial that it is highly operator dependent, and the variability of measurements can be highly there. So it is better that we stick to only white-to-white measurements. It is better to have at least 3 different methods of evaluation. So we go by the autorefractometer as well as digital caliper, and with the serous pentacam analysis, you can also choose the IOL master. But the studies have shown that the IOL master overestimates the white-to-white by 0.34 millimeters, and the pentacam overestimates it by 0.2 millimeters. So it's very crucial that for ideal wart, you actually have to stick to the right measurements. So once you have reviewed your findings, make sure that you give the consent form to the patient, make sure you make them aware about all the pros and cons. Plan iridotomies, especially if you are planning a hyperopic ICL procedure, do the online calculations. And whatever is your method of choice for your phakic lens, you go ahead and implant them. I'm sure this is one of the most satisfying surgeries that you'll ever perform in your life. And this is a highly, let us say, satisfying procedure for the patients as well. Thank you for your kind attention. Thank you.
Thanks, Vardhaman. That was a